Welcome everyone, Sabrina here from Life-MTV on Catching Up with Docarmo. We have a very special, important guest with us today, Ronnie Mayanja. How are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. How's everything going?
Everything has been good.
Yeah.
Just getting myself ready for the fall.
For the fall.
Basically, the weather doesn't always have the best of me because allergies, as you can tell,
allergies are kicking in.
Yeah, okay.
So can you tell us a little bit of what you do? Because I've heard so much about you, but there's so much that I would rather hear from you.
Okay. Well, the name is Ronnie Mayanja. I'm a graduate of Boston University College of Communication.
Yeah, that's right.
I graduated with a master's in broadcast journalism.
Broadcast journalism.
I also went to Makerere University, which is one of the leading universities in East Africa.
East Africa,
and
okay.
I've also worked in radio. I'm a radio trained voice by BBC, as well as
you can tell.
in television. Worked on WBS TV in Uganda.
Wow.
One of the founders of WBS.
That's amazing.
Yeah, one of
So you have a lot of experience.
Well, I could say that.
How do you feel being in front of all these cameras?
Well, it's a different field. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I love television. It's my first love.
Right.
I love radio too. And then of course I love writing, so I'm also online. So as you did ask, and rightly so, I founded Uganda Diaspora News, which is one of the biggest source of news for Ugandans who live outside of Uganda.
Wow.
Part of the sort of the passion for me to start that was because I felt that when we would read our online newspapers back home, the New Vision, the Monitor, and the Observer, nobody was telling our own story. So I started something to allow for us to tell our own story as Ugandans who live outside Uganda, and it's kind of got a life of its own. It's now accessed in more than 100 countries.
That's
I get a lot of messages on Facebook, Twitter, and all the other sort of mediums that we use, but it's quite active, quite big.
That's amazing. Do you have your own website going on right now?
Yes, the website, in case anybody is interested in going and checking it out, is www.ugandan with an N, ugandandiasporanews.com. I also have an event website that is for the events that we hold in Uganda.
Okay.
And that particular website is www.ugandan with an N as well, ugandandiaspora.com.
Wow.
That is for the events that we hold in Uganda every December, because a lot of our people, we as Ugandans always like to go back home and have Christmas with our loved ones. So I decided to pick up a day, which is 30th December, when all Ugandans who return home can be able to meet together and celebrate as Ugandans who basically live abroad. And then of course the other stuff we always have in real time updates, on our website is ugandadiasporanews.com. So you can always go on those two websites to find out, one about the events in December, and then the other one you can always go and find out about what's happening home in, like on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Your website is very popular. I actually checked it out. It's organized amazingly.
Thank you.
You just wrote about the Malacca fashion show. That was, and how did that go for you?
I first got to know about Malacca, it's a couple of years now, but I was impressed. One, he is a Ugandan who I would say has a head on his shoulder, who is going to Bentley College and to do business. And I also felt he was taking on something that I would think that a lot of people wouldn't embrace, which is fashion. And he was succeeding at it. So Joe Malacca is an inspiration to me in that sense, that you have a Ugandan who is making a difference. Of course, there is this adage in the Bible that says that the prophet is never welcome in his own town. So you find that he has taken on what I would say a huge undertaking, but not very many people from our community probably appreciate what he's doing.
Absolutely, that is so
true. When I saw his fashions and then got to meet with him, he was
Where did you meet him?
I'm still trying to remember because I've met him online. I've met him on Facebook, but I also met him when he was coming out with his first, line of collection and all the other stuff. So the actual day we met, that I don't exactly remember because it seems like I've known him forever.
Yeah,
but he's a really over the course of the time, I would probably say he inspires me. One, his humility, and two, his fashion, and as well as his fashion sense, so to say. I like what he does, and I think he's going places. It's just a matter of time before he hits what I call the big leagues.
Have you met anybody like him, like around
here? I've worked with a lot of designers in Uganda who are really good. One of them is called Samson. He always features at the Canada Fashion Week and all that. The other one is they're quite big. One is Arapapa, the other one is of course Arapapa is a friend of mine. The other one is Stella Tal, and then of course Sylvia Worry. All the designers are known to me by virtue of having been in the media. I've worked with most of them in Uganda, so I know them personally. So it's good to meet somebody like Joe from Uganda, who is living
here
in Boston, who I feel has the potential to make it back home as well as here. So definitely, I've met several designers.
How long have you been in the media for? Because you sound like you've done so much.
I always don't like to tell people that because then they start asking me how old are you, which I will not tell them. But I think the most interesting thing, I started out in the media when I was young.
Yeah.
So while I was in high school, I had this whole part. That's how I got hired. When I went and walked into the funny story, when I walked into a radio station in Uganda, by then it was run by a guy called William Pike, who was running New Vision. I'd never had this very clear signal coming out of radio, and that was the first time FM had been liberalized in my country. So I told them I want to start a gospel show on this station, and they say, you
say gospel?
Yeah, gospel.
Oh wow.
So my roots are actually in gospel, so I ended up starting a gospel show on this channel, and then it picked up very sort of big, and then of course it's from there that I moved into television.
Was the gospel community big back then?
It was very big, because right now, believe it or not, Uganda has more than 5 FM stations dedicated to gospel.
Which I find amazing. Absolutely.
I also started one of them, which is Impact FM. One of the stations in Uganda, which is gospel. And then of course there is Power FM.
Are you running that from being here in the US?
No. I mean, when I started, that was a phase in my life that came and went. And then of course I had to come back. To do further studies here in the US, and then pretty much that has been the story. But my passion, yes, I love radio, but I think TV is more interesting because it combines visual and audio.
That's amazing.
So I think that's kind of something that I miss. And then of course I love online journalism, because I mean, when I went to Boston University, one of the things that you trained us to do is that you had to write your own story. You had to shoot your own video and all that, and then you had to write your own script. So I think one of the things that I sort of come away with is that I marry all the three: broadcasting, radio, and then television and online.
Photo and everything together.
And photo as well.
How would you describe yourself as a writer? Would you say you're a writer?
I think that is for you to go on my blog and read my editorials and see if I'm a good writer or not. I think I try.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things that I do is that on a monthly basis, I'll summarize what has happened in the different aspects of the community. I'll talk about politics. I'll talk about, for instance, in my this month's editorial coming up in October, I'm talking about the Nairobi bomb blast. There have been the terrorist attacks that took place in Kenya. How sad, and how it took so long exactly that people are being killed by some sort of radical Islamists in East Africa. So stuff like that really inspires me quite a bit.
And what about the pictures? Do you take the pictures yourself, or do you get them?
I do take the pictures myself. I actually have a professional camera. It's a 60D, which also is very good if you're going to be doing video and all that. But again, it's all part of the territory when you are passionate about something. But
would you say, are you independent, like on your website?
I'm very independent, and everything you see on that is done by literally one person.
That is really, that's insane to believe. If you check out his website, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do have someone who helps me with the back end from time to time, but the majority of those stories I write them myself, or I pick up on them myself. And then maybe the producer of this show will even have a chance to insert part of the website so people actually get to see what we're talking about.
And how long does that take for you to put everything up?
I think now I've mastered the art so well that it won't take me long. I will be on the website in the morning, and maybe sometime during the day, midday, and then in the evening, just to see if there are any breaking news stories that I need to put out there. And I'm also on Twitter as well as Facebook.
What's your Twitter name?
The Twitter name is R Mayanja.
Okay, so we'll put that on the screen for you guys to see.
And then of course there's another one which is at Ugandan Diaspora, where you can actually be able to follow, because I have my own personal Twitter account, and then Ugandan Diaspora has its own. So I always try as much as possible to reach out to the different things that are happening within the community. What I didn't tell you, I'm a 2-term elected board member for Uganda North America Association, served twice, elected twice, first in San Francisco and then in Chicago. served over two periods of 2-year terms. And then, of course, I ended up starting Uganda Diaspora News because I wanted something that was more inclusive of Ugandans who not only live in North America, but in Europe, in Asia. Because right now, just to give you, I get people asking me, why don't you come and organize sort of events for us in Dubai, where Ugandans are, in China.
Really?
Last year I organized the first Canadian convention in Vancouver together
That's
with the
amazing.
guys
Really?
in Canada. We are trying to do another one in Edmonton, Canada.
When are you trying to do that?
We're trying to do one next year as well.
Okay.
And then here I'm also part of Uganda North America Association. So there are certain things that we sort of look out for. We had actually a very successful business expo in Boston at the Burlington Marriott.
Oh.
Joe Malaika was able to showcase some of his sort of styles.
Really?
And we're going to be doing it next year, but this time it's going to be more like East African, because we're trying to pick up
Bring it back.
Yeah, bring
here.
it back. Exactly.
That's amazing.
It's kind of getting a life of its own. And what we're trying to do is provide opportunities for our people.
Right,
If
absolutely.
you actually find out there are people who are looking to do business, there are people who are looking to do money transfer, and there are people who are looking to find ways and means they can actually grow themselves where they're
Over
living out
here,
here
absolutely.
in the diaspora without losing their identity.
Of course. And how do you find time to manage all of this?
The time, one of the things I always tell people, when we come into this country, there is not such a thing as having the time. You make the time. So in my view, one of
Good
the things
answer.
that I feel, if you're passionate about something, you make
the
for
time
it.
for it,
So that's something
absolutely.
that I always do. I make time. Just the same way, you make time for friends. One of the things that I love as a hobby is watching movies, so
Yeah.
I have to make time to go to the cinema and check out what's new. Sometimes I have
Right.
friends who tell me, no, I'm getting to Netflix or this or the other, and I'm like, no, when I sit in front of my TV, it's not the
It's
same
not the
surround.
same,
When
yeah.
I'm in the cinema and I'm looking at that silver screen,
Yeah.
it's a different experience.
That's
you know.
right. Do you ever write like movie reviews? Yeah.
Not really, but
No?
I've had those that were favorite movies of mine. One of them was Heat. By the Al Pacino and Robert De Niro movie. I love that. I don't know how many times I've watched that.
Really?
And then of course there are others that I've watched, but definitely, and I do epics from time to time.
Yeah.
300 Men. I like that. I also like Braveheart. There are certain movies that really
Right.
leave.
Stick to
Yeah,
you. That's
exactly.
right.
And then of course my own. I loved The Last King of Scotland because it had
Yeah.
everything to do with Uganda
Of
and
course,
Idi
yeah.
Amin, who had killed so many people.
Right.
So life at the end of the day, I would say is that I'm trying to live it, and
Right,
I also
absolutely, exactly
try
wanna do
to
that.
hang myself around people who inspire me.
Right.
One of them, if you go online and look up an interview, there's a gentleman called Shaka Sali with whom I also used to work. He's the
In Uganda?
He's Ugandan. He's the
Oh, okay.
managing. He's the managing editor of Voice of America, English to Africa Service in
Okay.
Washington D.C. He's a friend.
Okay.
The other person who I also like is a gentleman called Kwasi Alibaruho. He's the first African American or Ugandan, if you want, to lead a mission into space. He's Ugandan.
Wow, check
And
that out. I had no idea.
Actually, if you guys go on YouTube, you can actually Google him and add him onto this clip. I'm sure
Yeah.
people would be inspired just to see that there are Ugandans in all these places who have made a difference.
Right.
So those types of things really keep me going, and they encourage me to sort of push for the goal, because there's a
Right.
lot out there that people don't even know exists,
That's
especially about
true.
Uganda,
Right.
and people who are really striving to make a difference in our community.
Absolutely. What about your family? Is your family up here in the U.S.? or-
I have a brother who went to Brandeis University.
Oh,
and
wow.
he's
What did he
also,
study?
He did a master's in sustainable development.
Okay,
at
very
Brandeis
different from what you did.
Exactly.
Wow.
He lives
okay.
over in Lowell. And then,
okay.
of course, I do have 2 kids. I do have a spouse as well. So at the end of the day, I always tell people that when I talk about, because I've lived a life that they call is showbiz, when I'm talking about my family, I always like to have them in the background, because
Right.
I've been so much in the limelight that sometimes
You gotta keep them aside, because
and
that's not.
one thing that I must tell you, some people might not even believe it. One of the reasons, biggest reasons, as much as leaving Uganda, was going for further training, at CNN and all this. One of the other reasons I left the country was because I had no privacy. Everywhere I went, whether it was a restaurant, what I did. My entire life was an open book. And I was always in the tabloids, in the papers, not so much for the wrong reasons, but because people
just want to know what you're up to.
They assume you're some sort of celebrity, so they take it upon themselves to know what is going on in your life. So I like to lead a very private life.
Do you feel like you have more privacy here in the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, America is quite a very interesting place, if I might add, because this is a place.
How so?
No, because you're going to an example is I've lived on an apartment complex for 5 years where I don't even know who my neighbor is. Not out of because I mean, when you come into your house, you just get into your house and mind your business, and people are working all these funny shit. So that is something that would never happen when you're in Uganda, for instance.
Really?
Because I mean, kids will go play on the neighborhood and all that. You know who
it's
you're.
Very open. Everybody knows everybody. Yeah.
And I even had to bring this home. I had a funny story of a Ugandan who one time went home, and when he got home, he had I think been working this shift 7 to 11. Apparently he switches on the news to watch the news, and the police were all over his apartment complex. Somebody, his neighbor, had killed himself, and he didn't. That was like, that's my house, that's where I live.
You're kidding.
So those are the kind of things that we experience while we're here, because this guy didn't know even that day somebody had committed suicide or either shot his wife or something
happened
in the neighborhood. That's the kind of lifestyle that people are so into their own lifestyles here when they're living out there. So it's very impersonal, to say the least.
Right.
And one of the things that some of us who are Christians, you'll end up in church as a way of just trying to make sure that you build on some of these relationships, because people are so private, so impersonal.
Right. It's important to keep that unity. It
Others
really is.
will drown their frustrations either in liquor or alcohol.
Absolutely.
But I choose to approach things a bit differently. I like to be positive. I like to reach out to my community members and make a difference.
Absolutely, and you are making a huge difference in the community. You really
are.
That.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank
Ronnie,
you.
see, I'm so happy I met you. I'm so glad you came on the show. That's amazing.
Thank you. And probably the one thing that I will encourage the viewers or whoever might be watching us, one of the things that I always tell people is that the best way to allow yourself to be of service to others is make yourself available. One, be approachable, and two, just allow yourself to be used, one, of God and also of others, because you'll never know whose life you've touched.
Absolutely.
There are people that I've met. For instance, one of the things that I do, I always post the Green Card Diversity Lottery, on my website. I met someone who I didn't know. He told me, it's because of you and what you posted on Facebook that I'm in this country. Because once I posted that Green Card Lottery thing, this guy went, applied, and he, together with his wife,
so
were
you're
able to
informing
come.
the public.
Exactly. And then I was like, wow. Now, if I were to ask you, for me, that's priceless. How much are you going to pay me for something like that? And yet this person was like, you posted something on Facebook, I went, saw it, I read it, I applied,
you made a difference.
and then I got a Green Card Lottery to come to the United States, and now I'm working. So it's stuff like that for me that inspires me.
Yeah.
When you are able to make a difference like that.
That's amazing. Oh my God, Ronnie, we need to follow more up on you. That's crazy.
Well,
you do a lot.
I really am glad, and it's not easy, but somehow by God's grace, we make the difference. And
right, that's what I was going to ask. How do you find the strength and energy to do all of this and still be passionate about it?
I read a lot. There are certain people that inspire me. There are certain people I read up on a lot. When you look at the world's richest people, people like Warren Buffett, people like Bill Gates, people like Oprah Winfrey, who now has her own cable channel. These are people who have started very small but made a difference.
Absolutely.
I'm even inspired by the fact that Oprah could come up and tell us that in the first year of existence, OWN, which is a channel, didn't make a lot of money, but now there's a turnaround.
Absolutely.
I think part of the greatest way for us to even achieve a lot is acknowledging our mistakes or acknowledging our failures. There are people who don't even want to tell people that they are failing whatever they've done. There are certain things that I've done in my life. There are businesses that I've started and they have failed. And the greatest victory for me is having tried and failed rather than not having tried at all.
At all.
So I think there is a lot that there is a lot that if you have a passion. For a viewer who is watching us out there, you have a passion, there is something that you've purposed or wanted to do, just like Joe Malaika might be doing fashion. Follow your heart. The money might not come now, but if you're doing something that you're very passionate about, I think
Oh yeah,
the sky is always the
absolutely.
limit. Yeah.
Words have
It's
power,
always,
and it's true.
It's always about the passion, rather
Right.
than just sit there and be employed by somebody to punch in and out, and then
Right,
take
because
a
some
break.
people
Yeah.
hate their
Oh,
jobs.
yeah,
They're
they
getting
hate-
all this
exactly,
money, but it's
exactly.
like, is it worth it?
I always tell people
You know?
that I do what I love, and I know that it's just a matter of love, sort of time before it actually starts paying off.
Absolutely. That's amazing, Ronnie. Well, we do have to go, but thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're
We will
welcome.
speak to you very soon because we need to know what you're doing. I need to
Okay.
know, and I'm bringing the cameras to your house. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I know you like the privacy. I will keep myself away from that.
Okay.
Once again, thank you so much for tuning in on Life-MTV here with Catching Up with Docarmo. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much for the
Of
opportunity.
course.
And have a good evening.
Yay!